Get ready for the Hustle Northwest podcast, where Oregon's dreamers, doers, and entrepreneurs share their stories. Get inspired, get motivated, and get ready to hustle. Now, here are your hosts, Brian and Carrie.
So today on Hustle Northwest, we got a mystery guest. Well, kind of a mystery guest.
Mystery guest is a special guest.
Because we know who he is. You may not know who he is.
I've known him my whole life.
She's known him. So who is this mystery guest, Carrie?
It's my dad.
So why is your dad here? Tell us about why he's here.
Okay, so my dad back in 2009, he got this wild hair out of nowhere, and I'm sure it came from somewhere, but all of a sudden he's like, I tell this story. One day he's like, I think I'm going to start making knives, and we went, okay, what does that mean? He's like, well, I think I'm going to start making knives, and I know there's a whole thought process behind it. We'll get into it, but it was one of those things where it, like, to me, you were going to like make a knife and just to see if you could do it. Never in a million years did I think it would turn into what it's turned into.
So something you don't know, I don't think anyone knows,
okay.
is I wrote a story about me when I first started doing the knives. And the title of it was, Yesterday I Couldn't Spell Knife Maker, Today I Are One.
Oh.
And I thought that was witty. So I got a hold of Knife Magazine and said, hey, you got to look at what's out here. And this, you can have this if you want. They listened to it and they said, you know, your friends are just making you feel good. Tell me, call me in 10 years if you remember.
So you projected what your goal was going to be from the beginning. You wrote it down like, this is what I'm going to be.
You put it out into the universe. You spoke it into existence.
I've always wanted to make knives since 5th grade. I've always wanted to make knives.
How did I not know?
And my older brother Jerry was a saw filer for the mills in the cannery, and he gave me some material and said, here, try this. And I said, well, I wouldn't know where to start. So he introduced me to a guy by the name of John Freeman in Salem, and he was an artist with knife making. I'm using power machines. He's doing everything by hand. And you can tell the difference at the end. It's just beautiful workmanship that he would do. And the first time I met him, it was about 8 in the evening. I told Julie, I'm going to run down to Salem, meet this guy. I'll be back around 10. I got home at 3:30 that morning. And John would have kept going. But he said the same thing. He taught me one phrase, and that is, I have no secrets. You want to know how to make knives? Let's sit down. I'll show you how to make knives. And I've shown a couple of people, your Uncle Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I love it.
So one thing about your hobby, which a lot of people have hobbies, but few hobbies help generate almost $200,000 for schools.
And help communities.
And this is what your hobby has turned into.
And I'm real proudful of it for that.
Yeah. So tell us about how you went from your hobby of making a knife to entering it into your first auction.
Well, can you show them the first knife that I made?
Just hold it up there.
How ugly it is.
It's not ugly.
It's rustic. It's not ugly. I mean, actually, it's a really good looking knife.
So I used to tell the story. That's how I found out my dad could lie to me with a straight face. He looked at that knife and he said, "This is absolutely beautiful." About 6 months later, I pulled it out of the shield. Okay, he's probably a little off the truth side of the story.
I think it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's rustic. You got a bone handle. It's actually straight, even though the bone is curved. You're able to keep the blade straight. So if you're like jab it into something, it's not going to go in like at an angle.
Jab it into
something, not people, Carrie, just something in general.
So how did I get started?
Yeah.
Well, it's doing the donations. It's your guys' fault.
How is it our fault?
Because both you guys were on. You co-chaired Sublimity School Auction fundraising.
We got
auction.
suckered into that.
Yeah. You got suckered into it.
We had no idea what they were like, hey, we have an opening. You guys are new on the volunteer board. Do you guys want to run the auction? I was like, yeah,
well, the second year you ran it. The first year you co-chaired with someone.
No, we chaired the first year.
Okay, so you called me up and you said, Daddy. No, you said.
It does sound like her.
Stop it.
You said, how would you like to make a knife and donate it to the school for the auctions? Well, I'd never given thought to do that. And I said, sure. So I made a knife. You put it in the auction. It was on the silent auction side of the fundraising auction. and it brought $60. And I was okay, $60, but now I put a lot of time in it. And the next year came around and you called and said, how would you like to do it again? And I said, that's fine. But you said, oh, no, we're not going to do silent. You're going to be in the oral auction, and they bring more. At the end of the auction, it had raised $175. And I remember telling Julie, if I could get all my knives to bring $175, I'll make knives till the day I die.
Which is ironic considering what your largest grossing knife has now brought, which is
$20,000 for a
$20,000.
knife.
$3,000.
Now, I have no illusions that I built a $20,000 knife. I built a knife that somebody wanting to donate $20,000 said, hey, I might as well get a knife out of it too. And that's how they put the 20 grand into it.
But there is something that goes into it because there's a lot of oral auction items that could bring in $20,000, but yours specifically has because you've built something behind it, and it's almost has turned into a trophy.
Mhm.
And a lot of these school auctions, they've known about it. They know that you do these knives, and you don't sell these knives, right?
No, I've never sold a knife. This is 115 knives, and
You never made a dime off of them.
I don't even get my materials money back. In fact, for quite a while, up until 2 years ago, maybe three, I even had to buy my own tickets to watch my knife sell at all. Now people are gracious enough that
They're like, okay, we'll let you come watch.
You can watch from the doorway. How's that?
And you
Well,
can bring a guest.
it has gone into something that I never anticipated. Just like 2 months ago, I had no knives being asked for, and by the end of the weekend, I had 7 lined up that I had to do. So that gets you a little bit busy, but you think about when you're doing the knife, your mind wanders when you're working the knife. There's a lot of grinding time, and you think, how cool is it that people think enough of my knives that they're asking, "Are you going to put one in?" Because I've got one guy that has 6 knives, 6 of my knives,
Wow.
and he's paid.
A pretty penny for them.
He's not paid a pretty penny for them. He's paid to the auction a pretty penny.
So a lot of people don't know that. I mean, some people have gone to a lot of school auctions. Some people haven't never been to one. But the
Like
whole
when we planned an auction for the first time,
had
we
no
never
yeah.
never been to an auction
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
But I mean, the school auctions are designed to help raise money for something that's out of the normal budget.
Mhm.
It's
Right.
almost like a wish list of things that they would like to have for the school, the kids. Sometimes it's scholarships. Sometimes it's like safety equipment, like cameras for the school. That you would think that would be in the budget, but is not. And so the whole idea with these auctions is to help raise money for these special things that they would never be able to have any other way. And so that's where I think some of the thought process is like people are like, wow, why would someone spend $20,000 on a knife? And there is that thought process behind it where you're helping something, and it's not so much the items because most of the items that go into oral auctions are way out above. They go for what they're actually worth, and that the thought process isn't that you're buying something for a like amount. You're helping the school. You're doing it in a fun way. And there is some competition that goes on
Always.
in these auctions. So tell us about some of the
Some of
competition.
that competition is fun to watch. We had one where it was a scholarship auction, so you know exactly where the money's going. And the bidding started at about 1,000, and it inked up $100 here, $100 there, a couple, 3 or 4 people bidding, and then all of a sudden we're at a couple thousand, and it stopped. A couple thousand, that's substantial. And then the bidding started at this one table, and the auctioneer he's got this question on his face, just on his look. Finally he says, do you two know each other? And it was a guy and a gal both bidding on this knife, and by then it had gotten to $5,000. And he said, yeah, it's my wife.
He's
So-
betting
They're bidding
against his wife.
against each other.
Yeah. So they're bidding back and forth. They're sitting at different tables too, because
Oh.
they're sitting with their friends. And finally, let me back up. That was at $2,500, and he says, "That's my wife." And And then, so finally she says, I'm tired of this penny ante stuff. Let's go to $5,000. And he stepped up with 51, 52, and then finally at $5,300. It went to, in fact, it's my neighbor across the street. It's his son and daughter-in-law that bought it. And they've got a couple of them now.
Yeah, and a lot of these auctions, people have known each other for all their lives
Yeah.
too, and so there is some competition that goes maybe way back. That kind of fuels it. The auctioneers, some of these auctioneers are really good at working the crowd
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
pumping them up. And I think you've experienced that with your knife. You kind of give them a little feedback and a little um, not necessarily feedback, but you give them a little bit of insight as to what you're doing with the knives.
I
And that
give them a
helps.
little ditty about who I am and how I got into this and how you can get one of my knives without having the ability to go out and buy one. You can't come knock on my door and say, well, I take it back.
I was gonna say, but you've had somebody out.
I had one. I don't know. We don't name names
Nope,
here, do we?
that's all right.
Okay. So a local farmer.
I mean, you can.
Well, I won't say Silvernagle then. So anyway, John Silvernagle bid. He bid 36, if I remember right, $3,600, and got a beautiful knife. It was the only one I'd ever labeled, and I'd call it a knife for your wife. And
A
it had
knife for your
a
wife?
knife for your wife. It had a pink hue to the if you can see the spacer material. Well, I used a dyed spacer material in that, so it had a rose color to the knife. And John bid, I think, $3,600 when we got done. One of the guys he was bidding against was his nephew. And his nephew came up and he said, hey, I want you to make a knife for my dad. And I said, well, I don't do that. He said, well, how do I get one for him? He really loves your knives. How do I get one for him? I said, let's go over to John and see if he's okay if I do one for you for the same money. And of course, John was gracious enough to say yes. So the school actually ended up with $7,200 with a $3,600 bid.
So what I think was cool about that though is one, you asked permission from the person who won it because
Yeah.
it's supposed to be, kind of a trophy item.
Well, he owns that 3,600 bought this knife.
Yeah. But then at the same time, when somebody said, "Can I come get one also?" One, you got permission from the other person, but two, then you said that money goes straight to the school
When
too.
he paid the school that night and didn't get the knife for 6 weeks.
Wow.
So I saw him in Safeway and he said, hey, how's the knife going?
There's not a lot of times the school auctions or schools get like bonus after the auction like that. So that's really cool.
So you say that, you're right. I had 2 auctions. They were consecutive auctions where I had a friend of mine that had bought one of my knives. And he said, hey, I can't make it to the auction this year. We've got the grandkids so the kids can go, but I want to donate. So he said, can you put someone in the crowd to bid for me and bid $100 increments, and I'll go up to $8,500 on a knife. That's how much I'm going to spend at the auction anyway. And so the knife got up to $8,400, and it sold. But before it sold, they said, okay, we got a little twist. Whatever this knife brings up to 8,500, I've got someone that's going to match that. So it was.
That's happened more than once, though, hasn't it?
That's happened. Actually, it's happened 3 times, and then I had a guy that I know that lived in Florida. He lives in Florida. Called me up and said, "Hey, I want a knife for my mom." And he said, "Would you build her one?" And I said, "Well, I'll build her one and give it to an auction, and you can bid online on it." And so he did. He found somebody who knew that was going to be in the auction, and they did his bidding. And it was a real small auction. Things were going fairly light price wise, and then all of a sudden a $4,000 knife sold.
That's crazy. It's neat to watch too, especially when the bidding happens because there's this energy that starts happening, especially if they happen to be across the room from
Oh
each
yeah, and you're
other.
sitting right in the
And
middle.
you're in the middle,
Yeah.
and your head's just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And so you can watch it go up, up. And a lot of times there's times that you get a little bit of a lull.
Yeah.
Somebody takes a drink, and then all of a sudden they're right back to bidding again.
It's interesting. You go to some of these auctions and they have no alcohol.
Yeah.
And they have low bids, but you bring in the alcohol and the people get just loose enough to where
Yeah.
They're enjoying themselves.
Oh yeah, you should see the stuff we've walked home with this guy. Like all of a sudden, I'm like, well, that was great, but we didn't wind up getting anything. And Brian's like, actually, and he pulls out the receipt, and I'm like,
It feels like you won at the time.
you don't win.
It's kind of like going, it's kind of like going to the.
Yes, you did.
It's not like a grabber machine.
Hold on, you can't say you don't win. Now all of a sudden,
Everybody wins. Gary.
Everybody wins. Everybody is a winner.
It's all for the kids.
It's all for the kids.
Yeah.
It's all for the kids. Yeah.
So you've made over what 115
115
knives. So how much time did you spend on your first knife compared to your 115th knife?
Ooh.
The one that I built for my dad, I think I figured I had about 45 hours into it.
45 hours.
Yeah,
Wow.
because I had no equipment. I was
Yeah.
doing most of it by hand. The one piece of equipment I did have was an old grinding stone, like you would see in a Western, but it was a down version. It was only a 16-inch stone.
Yeah.
And so it didn't grind much off. It just put an edge on it. So, but that was the way I shaped the entire knife. That's why it took so long to do it.
So most of it was just you had to start out
Lack
with
of equipment.
lack of equipment. And
My first decent piece of equipment I built.
Really?
I went to Donnie Silvernail at D&W Automotive, said, Donnie, I want to make knives and I need a 2x72 knife grinder. I've got plans here, but I don't have steel and I don't have a way of cutting. And he just went to town. We were done in a couple hours.
Wow.
He had it all cut out, said, here, go bolt it together. And I'm still using it. It's got a Maytag wash machine motor on it. So I got that from Mr. Fix-It.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now I've got 3 2x72s, and there'll be a time where I've got different belts on them. I'll have all 3 of them running at the same time, doing the stages of grinding. And then buffing, it's interesting. People say, hey, can you take my knife and put a little shine to it with a buffer? Well, I can, but buffing's the most dangerous part of building a knife.
Really?
And you would think it would be the least, if not way down on the ladder as far as dangerous, but that cloth wheel spins 3,600 RPMs, and when it grabs a hold of steel, it wins.
Oh.
So I've been hurt a couple times making.
Have you?
Yeah, I was doing one where I had a long drill bit. I was building an axe, so I wanted to be able to go into the handle quite a ways. And I went up to my drill press and I reached up to kind of I did everything you're not supposed to do.
Did everything you're not supposed to do.
So I've got the elk antler in my hand, and I reach up, and as soon as it touched the drill bit, it was stuck in me, and it's enough to where it stopped the drill press. I had to shut it off.
It was stuck in you?
It was stuck
inside you.
I took I opened the chuck up. When I stood back, it was still sticking out. I went in the house and said, Julie, I got a problem, and I got a bad problem. She said, what? I said, I don't know how far in this is. We need to go to the doctor right now.
How have I never heard this story?
She said, well, let me look at it. So I had a cloth apron at that time. She unwinds the cloth apron. When she gets all the way down, she said, no, it's stuck in the apron. And she looked, and there was a spot. And so a couple days later, I went to the doctor and I said, this isn't healing very well. He said, well, let me look at it. He said, let me see, how many times did it hit you? And I said, well, just once. He goes, no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It hit you 7 times before it stuck, but it was that fast.
See, you have a leather apron now, right?
I've got a leather apron now. Yeah.
So, so we talked about how you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You asked how long does it take to do a knife now?
Yeah, like now.
26 to 28 hours is.
That's still a long time for anybody to. I mean, especially when you're making that many knives for auctions, and auctions happen. They don't come at one time of the year. They all have them staggered.
Yeah.
To different times of the year. What do you think? What's the next auction that's coming up?
The one coming up is for Regis St. Mary's, their school auction
In Staten.
In Staten. I have kind of a soft spot in my heart on it because my daughter went to Regis.
Your son went to Regis.
My son went to Regis. Nieces and nephews. My dad helped build Regis when it was built back in the 52 or something like that.
Yeah.
Your grandkids go there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My grandkids going. Yeah. So
your wife? over in the corner went there.
I can't look at her. You
I know.
guys said don't look at her. But
Hi, Mom.
but I've got a soft spot in my heart for Regis, and Regis has been such a supporter of my knives. I'll get at some auctions two people bidding against each other. I'll get at Regis, I got 5 or 6 of them bidding against each other, and it's the parent involvement at some of these schools is just amazing. I won't name the one school, but I got asked about doing a knife in one of the schools, not the ones you guys are familiar with. And I said, "What do you know? Do you know much about my knives?" And yeah, we've been to auctions where we've seen them sell, so we know the work you do, and we know how well they're received by the community. And the auction started, and no one bid.
Oh.
And the knife was beautiful. I'll admit it. It was one of my better works. And the auctioneer started out at 1,000, then 500, then 250, then 200, and then 100, and then 50.
Wow.
And there's no bid. And this is a course of about 3-4 minutes, and that $50 there's no bid yet. So finally, the guy that asked me to put a knife in said, "Well, heck, I'll buy it for 50." So he bid. Well, then it started taking off. But when it got to 1,000,
Just stalled out.
it was done.
It's amazing what some people like. They wait on they don't want to be the first one to make the bid, and then but once it gets established, then people start raising their hands.
Well, but the parent involvement is huge, and you can tell at some schools how solid that is. The auction's coming up, but the event for me to donate is coming up. That school I mentioned to you, they were having trouble selling tickets. So they put a bonus to the teachers saying, if you sell a pair of tickets, I'll give you 2 pair of tickets to do whatever you want with. You can sell them, you can keep them, you can, fill a table, do whatever you want. It got down to 2 nights before the auction, and they had not sold, the entire staff had not sold a pair of tickets yet.
Wow.
They just weren't. Now at Regis, St. Mary's, Staten, Mill City, those schools,
They sell out.
oh, they're sold out weeks in advance.
And something like that can make or break any future school auctions. If people see, well, I don't want to put anything in this auction if no one's going to bid on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested in putting another one in that school.
Yeah.
They asked me later, "Are you interested?" And I said, "Well, no, there's no parent involvement." And they said, "Yeah, we can't get them motivated."
Sad.
Yeah.
And like Regis, the first auction I was in for Regis, I thought, I wonder where the money's going to go. I know it's going to the general fund, but is it earmarked for anything? And it was part of the money that developed their track.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
I could see where it was going.
Yeah.
And then the next one was they needed a tractor. It was the money was going to go to buy a new tractor for the
I'm
school.
pretty sure taxes are like that. You know exactly where your tax money's
I
going.
want to
Like,
know where these dollars
I built
are
that
going.
road. I built that road right there.
This is Corcoran Road we're driving down.
So you've started out making like the first one would that be considered like a hunter's blade?
Yes, the one that's on the Regis one.
Uh-huh.
If you notice, they're green and gold
I
colored.
know, I saw that.
And
How do you get
so-
inspiration for the knives that you're going to do? Like what?
It's funny when I start the knife, I don't know where I'm going.
Really?
I don't have a clue where I'm going.
Do you draw it out like on a paper drawing? Or?
No, I draw it out on the blade blank.
Okay.
So I take a piece of usually it's planer blade steel.
Do you have a blade blank?
Yeah,
Yeah, I see it.
I have slicer blade steel from the cannery, but I don't do much with that anymore. This is planer blade steel.
Uh-huh.
So
if someone doesn't know what that is, what is a planer blade steel?
so at the mills they'll use planer machinery to plane the lumber down.
Oh, okay.
This is where's the camera there?
You want to hold up?
It's sharp.
Don't cut yourself.
I'm not going to cut this. I'm just kidding.
So that's where I start. I'll stay with that. And then I go with this. That's the drawing of the knife. I experimented with having a buddy of mine do a plasma cutting.
Yeah.
And he plasma cut out the knife. And then I clean that up. And there's still the next step and drill the holes. And then find the handle material that I want to use and see if it's going to impress on it.
Yeah.
The sharpness starts going away.
Yeah, the sharpness is the
And then
yeah.
you've experimented with the actual handle material too. You've gone from like bone to different types of materials.
Yeah, I love working with giraffe bone.
Giraffe bone.
Giraffe bone. So a buddy, I'll admit, he's a buddy of mine. A buddy of mine says, "What's a handle?" And I said, "Giraffe bone." "Where do you get giraffe?" I said, "Well, they raise them down out of soil." "They do?" No. And if they did, do we have a three-legged one running around? Because I've got.
So where do you get the bone material
So
from?
every year there's a knife show in Eugene, and they bandy back and forth between there and one back east as to which one's the biggest in the United States.
Hmm.
So the one in Eugene last year was the biggest one in the U.S., and this year it looks like it's going to be again. And there are people there from all over the world that come to this to sell or buy. And there's a place called Jant's Supply. They used to be a big seller there. These last couple of years they haven't been there, but there's another company that's there selling these materials, and they have exotic handle material from all over the world. So that's where I get most of it.
But you've
every
also
year.
had people donate it to you as well.
That's on the elk antler.
Yeah.
In fact, I put a call out. I'm almost out of elk
So if
antler.
anybody has any elk antlers they want to rehome.
Yes, please. I don't have the ability to buy, but I certainly have the ability to accept.
Yeah.
Elk antler if you'd like to donate it, and I'll put a word out at the auctioneers so you get a little credit for it.
Yeah, and you get to see it repurposed into something cool.
Yeah.
So if someone wanted to get into knife making, what would you tell them to do?
Find someone they know that makes knives.
Okay.
There are a plethora of books and magazines out there for how to build knives, and they can take it from knife making for dummies to to the most beautiful finished product you've ever seen.
These knife shows that you've gone to, is it also like a good resource for people to kind of talk with people that
Oh
are
yes,
experienced?
oh yes, and all but one person has all said the same thing that John taught me, and I say, I don't have any secrets. You want to know something? Ask me. I'd be happy to tell you. There's one guy that goes to the auction. He's known for this. I asked him about stabilizing some bone. Stabilizing is you have the raw bone,
Mhm.
you slice it to size, and then you put it in a pressurized container and you force dye into the crevices.
Oh, okay.
And when it's done, it looks much like the black
Okay.
and white one there. That's a stabilized, I did it, but it's a stabilized bone. So I wanted, okay, how do you stabilize? And the guy said, "Well, that's how I make my living." I said, "Well, I'm not going to buy any from you, and I'm certainly not going to go in competition with you. I just want it for my own." He said, "No, you." I said, "Well, everyone says I don't have any secrets." He said, "I've got a lot of secrets."
Oh my god.
And so I'm talking to a buddy of mine, Cameron House, who's just an incredible knife maker. And I mentioned, oh, yeah, that's so and so. He knew exactly who it was.
Stop.
Yeah.
So just like anything else, everybody's got
Yeah.
their hobbies, and they
Well, most people look at this and they say, how can we expand the knife makers? We need to bring younger people into
yeah, it's
making
kind of a
knives.
dying art.
It is.
With a lot of just like a lot of things that people have been doing for thousands of years. They haven't a need for it, so it's been kind of dying off. Just like leather makers or like
Yeah.
people who do like woodworking or metalworking. There is a younger generation. I think they're getting back into it for the art form, like such young people like you have gotten into the art
Young
form
sprightly
of
men.
making
Yeah.
knives as just kind of a hobby, not necessarily like you need it, but it's something in an art form now. And so it's good that hopefully you'll be able to pass that on to someone else, and then they'll do the
Well,
same
we'll
thing.
see if anyone in the family.
Well,
So,
your brother, you helped your brother-in-law too, didn't you?
so I'll tell you the story behind that. We were at an auction. You guys got us to go to the auction. The knife brought pretty low bid, but it was a basic knife. I didn't have time to put a hunter's blade out there. It was one that there's a material that's out there that's bearing material for heavy equipment, and that's what I made the handle out of. Well, after they bought it, they said, "Yeah, we're going to give this to our son Jason for his birthday." And I said, "No, you're not. We're got to give him a nicer knife than that." So I said, "Jeff, what would you think of coming over and I'll walk you through it, but you'll build the knife." And he did. He came over. I bet it was over a dozen times, and built a beautiful knife for his son.
Kind of like a Crocodile Dundee when he's like, "That's not a knife. This is
Yeah,
a knife."
well, it's very similar to the one that's
I was
out
gonna
there.
say that's what made me
This
think of it.
this big beast here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a large handled knife.
yeah, it is.
And then Dad was telling me yesterday because he was showing me for holding on to it, like your thumb's supposed to go right there.
And your index finger goes in that way.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
Look at me. I didn't even know. Clearly, I don't knife a lot.
Yeah.
So
Well,
So I made one for Julie when she was working at Northwest Natural, and it was a letter opener. And she wouldn't take it to work with her because it looked like a knife. And you can't bring, I never thought about it. You can't bring weapons to work.
So I remember you gave me one, and I had it in my car because I'm thinking, oh, if you're ever in an accident, like you have to cut the
Sure.
seatbelt, yeah. And so Brian goes, that's like a weapon you're driving around with. And I was like, no, it's just a knife my dad made me.
It's
He's
just
like,
a concealed weapon.
yeah, he's like, no, Carrie, that's a concealed weapon. Like you can't just drive around with that in your car. I was like,
you can put it on your little belt loop.
oh, okay,
You
I
could be
didn't
one of
know that.
those. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. It's always something.
So, well, thank you for coming in
Yeah.
and showing us. I mean, we've seen these, but I think it's good that other people see, hey, there's someone out here making knives, and it's doing good out in the community.
Mhm.
It's kind of moved past the hobby form, and
Well, who doesn't want a personalized knife
yeah,
made for them? Their name, I etched.
I was
the
gonna say
people's-
that's the one thing that you didn't mention is that what they wind up doing to personalize
like
it.
on that the black and white one.
This guy.
So if you look, this is my knife. I keep every 10th one. So Leon Adams, and then I put Adams knives, and I put the month, the year, and what knife number it is. So 11021. So when a person buys a knife at the auction, I bring the knife home. I've got to put an edge on. I quit putting an edge on before the auction.
Very good idea.
Well, I had a guy come up and he says, "Hey, is this thing sharp?" I said, "Yeah, I've got a really good edge on it." He sliced all three of his fingers. And, "Hey, give me a band-aid." I said, "Well, I don't pack band-aids around."
it's sad you have to do that, but it's
So now I bring them to the auctions and they're not sharp.
It's like you'd expect a 5-year-old to be like,
yeah.
not like a grown person.
So I'll take it home, like the one that's over there. I'll take that home. I'll etch their name in it. I'll etch me in the other side, and then I'll build a stand for that. So it can. A lot of people are putting them up on their
Yeah.
credenzas, and
So you got the Regis auction. Is that the next one coming up?
yes,
Okay.
that's
End of-
coming up.
end of
I think
April.
the
26, I think it is.
so.
Yeah.
Any
Saturday.
other ones coming up after that?
You know, I have two more that are talking about it, but one of them does an auction every other year.
Yeah.
And this isn't the year, but they've got some projects and they network quite a bit. So this gal knows a gal at the Mill City School who knows someone at their, I'm sure it's still in existence, but the Lord's
Mhm.
Charter School, Lourdes Lord's Charter School. She knew someone there. In fact, quick little, do we have time?
Yeah.
Quick little ditty about Lourdes that's where I met the first auctioneer that's ever worked the local circuit and knew the local people. And it's Diane works for him. There's a jewelry store.
Oh,
Carol?
Bonnie.
Or Monty. Yeah.
Monty. So Monty, if you guys don't know him, Monty's blind. Has been since he was a youth.
Which is totally great. He trades coins.
He trades coins.
And he does that by feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he gets up in this auction and he is in his element.
He's an amazing auctioneer.
He is. He's an incredible auctioneer. And one year they didn't have him there, and I said, "Monty, how come he came?" But I said, "How come you're not an auctioneer?" He goes, "My jokes got stale."
Oh.
He says, I'm working on new material.
He's such a nice guy.
Well, it's interesting. I see him at the A&W, and I'll walk by and Monty, how you doing? I'm good, Leon. How are you?
The guy's incredible.
Yeah, he is an amazing man.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks for coming in and showing us the knives, showing everybody else out there the knives, because we've seen these, but I think not everybody else knows that this is a thing. And
a lot of people. What the cool thing is when all of a sudden I'll go somewhere and people are like, "Hey, I was just at the auction.
Yeah.
Your dad's knife did amazing there." And most times I'm like, "You had an auction? I didn't know there was another." Because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
So I've got one in Florida, one in Kansas, 3 in Oklahoma, one in
Are you talking about knives?
Yeah.
Okay.
Knives that
I
people
thought you were
have.
talking about
I thought
auctions. It's
auctions.
like,
I
Oh
was
what?
like, when did you
no,
start
I'm
traveling?
sorry. These are knives that I've sold and where they've gone to.
Oh, cool.
So
you're worldwide now.
Worldwide.
I haven't gone across the oceans yet. I'm still just
Coming.
It's coming.
It's
Yeah.
coming.
People don't throw away knives; they go out there. So that's a good way for you to kind of live on is
There
through
you
your
go.
knives. And so, what is your end goal here? What do you want? Is it like a number you want to hit as far as knife count or money that you've raised?
I wanted to hit 200 knives and 250,000 with one or the other.
Yeah, that's doable,
And
right?
I think I'm going to be chasing the 250 more than the 200
I
knives.
don't think so. I think you're gonna hit the 250 before
That's
you.
what I'm saying.
Oh.
I'm gonna be, yeah, I think I may be going 250 before I do the 200 knives.
Oh, I got it. So I heard it wrong.
All right. Well,
So one we haven't shown, and I like to just show it.
yeah,
This is one of my favorite knives.
it's kind of a new one you're getting into, which is I really
Yeah.
like that one. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
you have one close to it.
Mhm.
Brandon has one close to it.
For people that don't know, Brandon's my brother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's made of a wood called wine wood, and it's a veneer wood, but it's a natural veneer.
Yeah.
And so you get different layers as you're grinding on it, and I think it's a
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
knife.
I like the sheath too.
Okay, now I'll shut up.
No, you're good.
Okay, well, again, and how can people reach you as far as if they have an auction that's coming up? Do you have
think
a
they posted-
website or do you have an email?
Email me at Leon Leon at Adams Knives ADAMSKNIVES.com,
Perfect.
or they can call me 503-551-3913. I'll always take a phone call.
All right.
And if anyone wants to bandy things around or see if it's something for them to do to make knives, they can walk in my shop and we'll walk through some stuff and see if it's an interest.
All right. Well, Leon, we'll see you again when we go pick up the kids at some point.
Yeah.
So,
Probably see you in a few hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming out.
Thank
and,
you, guys.
showing us everything you do.
Thank you for everything you guys do. These podcasts are incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.